I'm Matthew Pottage and I'm the curator here at RHS Garden Wisley. I'm in the Wall Garden East and I want to share with you some of our hollies and ivies. Holly and ivy is something we hear about a lot during the winter, especially the festive period, but they are two very useful evergreen plants for the garden. The importance with evergreens is when you look out the window in the depths of winter, the garden looks like there's still something happening, there's still some presence, some warmth, some vibrancy, and both hollies and ivies are brilliant for that. So hollies, or known as Ilex aquifolium mostly, are a very useful plant. They're tolerant of both shade and dry conditions. You will, however, get the best fruiting hollies if they're in full sun. And while hollies can take quite shady conditions, they'll always have less foliage on, they'll be slightly more sparse, but in a sunnier or brighter position, they'll be much more fully furnished. The plant behind me here, Argentea marginata, is a classic variegated holly, very beautiful creamy yellow margin to the leaf, and as you can see here at Wisley we've trained it as a standard. And one of the beauties of hollies is you can shape them. Not really something I'd ever take the shears to, more the secateurs, just to form some kind of dome, standard or lollipop, or even a hedge. But the downside of using them for hedging is they are slightly slower growing than some hedging plants. So it is something, if you have a good soil, you'll have a quicker growing plant. If you have a poor soil, expect to feed it to encourage the growth to reach the final heights you want. At Wisley, we treat these standards with a once-a-year cut. And it's simply done by secateurs, just taking them back to a leaf joint so you don't leave untidy stems. You could go over this with a hedge cutter or a pair of shears, but the problem would be a lot of the leaves would get cut in half and it wouldn't give such a crisp finish. But the beauty of holly being fairly slow growing is you only really need to do this once a year, and you can do this in late summer. Or if the plant has a lot of fruit on it and you obviously don't want to be cutting off the berries, wait till the birds take the fruit, or wait till Christmas comes and then you can snip bits off for your wreath or some decorations. But you can clip them or cut them back into the winter months. The growth won't commence until the following spring. One of the many useful attributes of variegated hollies is they are good for lighting up a shadier space. So this border at Wisley actually faces north, so not everything is going to be happy in here. But something like this variegated hedgehog holly, which this is one called Ferox argentea, really lights up the space, but also it has these incredible prickles on the leaves, these small spines on the upper surface of the leaves, giving it the common name of the hedgehog holly. And if you're interested in textural form, interesting foliage, it's absolutely beautiful and it's really worth looking out for. But there are so many leaf forms, sizes and shapes and colour tones within the holly group. They're really addictive once you start looking into them. I'm standing in front of Ilex ultraclarensis belgica aurea. It's quite a mouthful, isn't it? Hollies do make small trees eventually if left unpruned and left completely to their own devices. This is a very old example and it is a slow-growing cultivar, but it is a real highlight this time of year and you can see the fruit starting to form on it. Interestingly, we often get asked, why isn't there any berries on my holly? Why isn't it fruiting? And hollies often are male and female, and a mix will give you a better fruiting display. And it is just worth looking at male and female cultivar names. You can find them easily on the RHS website online, and sometimes the name is not always helpful. For example, Ilex Golden King is actually a female holly. And if you can have a few in the garden that are a mix of male and female, that will definitely give you a better fruiting display. A really exciting hybrid holly is this cultivar called Chestnut leaf, which is a cross between Ilex aquifolium with latifolia, which is a very large-leafed holly. What's really exciting about the hybrid is it's quite vigorous, so it's quite a strong grower, and it has this lovely big leaf, a little bit like a sweet chestnut, hence the name. And it has very generous harvests of fruit. These are often born on the current season's growth, so you have these tips absolutely laden with fruits which ripen to a lovely scarlet red. But it's a very appealing holly, and if you're not really into variegated foliage, it's perhaps one to look out for, but it will make a small tree in favourable conditions. Ivies, or hedera, are brilliant for growing against shady, dark, dank places on walls. And in the wall garden east here at Wisley, we have this gallery of different cultivars that run along the entire length of this large wall. And you can compare side by side different leaf shapes, sizes, forms and colours. You can grow, of course, ivies on house walls, and an RHS scientific study has shown that they actually help keep the house temperature cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter. So they do have other benefits other than just looking pretty. Of course, the obvious thing to mention here is pruning on ivies. Once a year, take them away from the gutters, stop them growing over the windows. And if they start to grow outwards, just run a hedge cutter or a pair of hedging shears over them just to stop them growing out too much. Obviously after bird nesting season, because birds love to nest in ivy, and it's brilliant nectar source for things like butterflies and pollinating insects. So it's a great plant for wildlife too. One of my all-time favourites is one called Sulphur Heart. You can see it here with this soft buttery yellow variegation, a lovely large leaf, and it just looks brilliant year-round. A slightly more surprising and unusual way to grow an ivy is as a freestanding standard. And this ivy here has been trained on this pole, many years of hard work, and this will have a once-a-year clip to keep the shape, and it's almost like topiary ivy. You may have seen some of these plants at our flower shows over the years. They were generously donated to Wisley by Fibrex Nurseries in Warwickshire. If you own a garden in containers or you have a shady area with pots, ivies are brilliant in containers too. This is one called Goldchild, which is so bright and so vibrant. Regular food and water will of course keep it looking its best, like any containerised plant. And if vine weevil are a visitor to your garden, do a nematode drench in August time, because vine weevil do unfortunately go for ivy in pots. But apart from that, very low maintenance and an incredible display 12 months of the year. So if you're thinking, well, I don't have a lot of space, I don't have the wall space for an ivy, perhaps think again. This is one of the smallest of the ivies. It's a variety called Speciality, and it's absolutely beautiful, cute, compact, rather slow growing, but grows absolutely flat to the wall. You can see how this is even following the contours of the wall here. Again, happy in a really shady dark spot. Such a beautiful texture. It almost looks like moss on the wall from a distance. I think both hollies and ivies are such worthwhile garden plants. So I think regardless of your size of garden or aspect or soil type, there's surely a holly or an ivy to suit any space.